All right. Good evening, everybody. This is the Florida Cannabis Action Network's Legislative Committee meeting during what is known as the Florida Legislative Session. Florida Cannabis Action Network's members are invited to join us every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. so that they can get an update on what happened in Tallahassee and an expectation about what is going to be coming up following week, a little bit of recap on what just happened. And if you want to be part of the people who are discussing the strategies and creating the tactics that we're going to use to promote these bills or challenge these bills, then I would invite you to join Florida Cannabis Action Network. If you are already a member of Florida Cannabis Action Network, you will be getting an email on the morning of every Wednesday morning, just reminding you this is where we're going to be. So our legislative committee has already been active this year. Some of you know we've done Cannabis at the Capitol, our annual lobby day where more than 60 people came out to talk to lawmakers. We had some fabulous responses back from people. And yet prohibition is alive and well in the state of Florida. Maria Hurley is our immediate past president, and she has been tracking what is happening with the legislature through our handy dandy spreadsheet provided to us by our buddy Dana, other Dana, not this Dana, but we love them both. Dana not Dana K, said that this was the way that we should be following our bills. So Maria, you want to take over?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we'll take a look at what was moving and shaking in Tallahassee this week with cannabis. All right, so we had several bills that were agended and heard in committee this week. Let's start with yesterday. And yesterday we heard, sorry, too fast of a scroll. Okay. Senate Bill 1698 by Burton, Food and Hemp Products, was heard in the Senate Agricultural Committee. And this one, I actually already had the language pulled up on it. It was a very active committee. People came from all over the state to speak on it. There's a little bit of over an hour of people that commented and had different perspectives on what this bill accomplishes. And then today I found out that there was a committee substitute put in for it. So I'm still familiarizing myself with all of the language changes. But the majority of what was presented yesterday in committee and how it was originally filed, the intent of it has not changed. Currently, this bill its intent is to protect the children, to protect consumers, and to regulate some cannabis products that I'm not sure the legislature actually knows enough about to have this bill go all the way through. But we will see how the language progresses as it goes along. I think a lot of it's going to have to do with actual constructive input from the community. But here, the language that's underlined that they're looking to change is that a business or food establishment may not possess hemp extract, according to the definition, products that are attractive to children. So they're looking to do away with anything that looks like another branded product, that looks like something that you're already familiar with, that a child might accidentally mistake for a non-cannabis product that they're used to seeing all the time. And they believe that they can correct this with packaging and not letting people put fun flavors, colors, shapes into these products. I have a problem with that there because I think that flavoring might include an umbrella of terpenes, and that could be a real problem because terpenes are a major way that people enjoy and know cannabis. So I'm just not sure how that's even possible to take away flavoring unless they came back and changed the language to flavoring aside from terpenes. There is quite a bit in here about, oh, I'm on the last page of the bill. Sorry, there were updates out of the last page of it. So the beginning of it, basically, there's some milligram changes here that don't really work for this industry. And it's got people in a bit of a panic because we saw the same language last year. Down here, lines 50, starting with lines 56, it talks about a THC concentration on a wet weight basis that doesn't exceed 2 milligrams per serving or 10 milligrams per container on a wet weight basis, whichever is less. That's not just talking about edibles, though, I believe. Looking up in here, hemp extract intended for inhalation as well. So this doesn't work for an edible product. It certainly doesn't work for an inhalable product or a concentrated product. So the way that this is written looks like they're trying to eliminate this industry. Burton did come back at the end of the committee yesterday and say, hey, what's your happy medium? What do you think works? So they're open to language. I don't think they really understand how this doesn't work. I've been kind of taking surveys throughout the day today to find out what people typically take for an edible dose. But I'm not sure that you could get any number that someone's going to be happy with that would be couldn't potentially harmful with a child. But children aren't supposed to have access to these products anyway. So there's that language is problematic. And then you've got all these different cannabinoids that hemp extract shouldn't contain. What I'm taking issue with right now is where it says synthetic or naturally occurring versions. I don't really understand why you would do away with naturally occurring versions. So that language is confusing to me because on their face, there's nothing wrong with these minor cannabinoids, Delta 8, Delta 10. THCA is THCA. I see THCV in here even. I guess I'm just not really understanding why the naturally occurring versions of this. I understand that the synthetic conversions and the way that people are producing or getting hemp products through, the government doesn't necessarily agree with. But if these minor cannabinoids go away altogether, we lose them out of all cannabis
I feel like
products.
there's a big difference between synthetic and derived, though.
Right, but it says synthetic or naturally occurring version. So I guess that's the part of the language that
You don't like?
I'm not in agreement with. Yeah.
Yeah, concur. Okay, so it's both. Okay, I don't like that.
Here
So,
lines 70 through 72 looks to correct language and how THC is calculated for hemp products, which matches how I believe we have it written in statute, but is different from how we have it in the federal farm bill. Did you have a comment, Jody?
I'll hold them till the end. I can take notes.
Sure. So this is a complicated bill, even though it's short. It does a lot. It's only 6 pages, but it does a lot. And we are still learning about it and trying to figure out how we need to communicate with legislators so that they better understand what it is that they're trying to get done in a way that doesn't hurt commerce, doesn't hurt people who are relying on these products, and yet solves the problems that they're looking to solve. Here we have added language at line 85, where we talk about the limits of the hemp extract above. There's some minor language changes with kind of cleanup of the language. They added the poison control number as an amendment yesterday. I imagine that's something that would have been on future labeling anyways. So, you know, it's there. And then on page 6, which is a part that I was really interested in because I really think this could greatly affect our community, is where we talk about events. And I'm just gonna read it word for word so that people can hear this once if they don't go back to read it themselves. It's saying, starting at line 150, that an event organizer may not promote, advertise, or facilitate an event where hemp extract products that do not comply with general law, including hemp extract products that are not from an approved source as provided in subparagraph A, 1B, are sold or marketed, or hemp extract products are sold or marketed by businesses that are not properly permitted as required by this section and chapter 500. Before an event where hemp extract products are sold or marketed, an event organizer must provide to the department a list of the businesses selling or marketing hemp products at the event and verify that each business is only selling hemp products from an approved source. The event organizer must ensure that each participating business is properly permitted as required by this section and chapter 500. And if you violate this paragraph, you're subject to an administrative fine in a Class C category under statute 57971 for each violation. Breaking it down, at some point, somebody, a regulator, somebody went to an event and saw products that shouldn't be sold, and they're being sold. So they're looking to clean that up. The unintended consequence of this, I believe, is that if you are a company, and I'll use one of our brand partners as an example, CR World, a CBD company, and they want to participate and doing something in, say, the Villages, where there's going to be 3 or 4 other vendors there, non-cannabis vendors. They're going to be the only one that sells any kind of cannabinoids. Now the vendor is going to have to go jump through the special hoop. Not the vendor, but the host, the event coordinator, is going to have to go through this, fill out this form, and I don't know if there's liability or where the liability lies. But you have to say that you verified that each business is only selling hemp products from an approved source. And I get that, but I don't feel like most people are going to do that. And so it eliminates a lot of different places and communities where we could educate that just won't have the opportunity to, because people aren't going to jump through that extra hoop to do that. So that's a major problem with this part of the bill. Oh, and that last part about the Class 3 category under statute 570.971, the administrative fine for not jumping through that hoop if someone was found to be selling something that they weren't supposed to, is $10,000 per violation. I haven't even looked up what the fine is under the chapter 500 for the food sales on the other part of this bill, but that was shocking to me because there are 4 categories of fines, 1,000, I think 5,000, 10,000, and they went right to that 10,000 mark to make sure that people know that they're serious. So that one was interesting to me. But yeah, there have been language changes already since yesterday. They amended and added on the poison number. They've done a committee substitute and added in this new language about chapter 500. Definitely keeping my eye out to see which committee it lands in next. I have everything reported out of committee, but I don't have where they're assigned to next on all of them. We had 2 bills that were heard this morning. I've got Smith. Oh, this was the naturopathic medicine bill that was heard in Healthcare Regulations Subcommittee this morning by Representative Smith. And this bill did pass. What did I write about it? I think it was 12-4 on this bill. Yeah, it was 12 yeas, 4 nays. One of those nays I noted was Skidmore on that bill. Yes, Jody, I did go through this morning and actually watch the committee for both of these bills and find out how they fared and who showed up to speak for them and how they were discussed. So the naturopathic bill was interesting to me because it seemed that there were just as many people speaking for it as there were against it. Most people that were against it seemed to be concerned with the amount of freedoms that a naturopathic physician would have, and they took notice with that, also the term physician. So it looks like there's still quite a bit of work in language to make more people happy with that one. It is a 90-page bill. It's a 90-page bill now. A 70-some page bill a couple weeks ago. It's a 90-page bill now. And then the other one that was heard this morning was Amisty's bill. This bill here is location of medical marijuana centers, retail vape shops, and on-premises consumption of alcohol. And this was heard in Regulatory Reform and Economic Development Sub this morning by Representative Amnesty. And this one says that all of the existing medical marijuana treatment centers, vape shops, and bars or non-food establishments, more alcohol, would go to 1500. You can be within 1500 feet of a religious or school establishment. Currently it's like 500 feet, but they said that it wouldn't affect any of the existing. And Ron Watson was there on behalf of Verano and asked if the real estate that they have coming down the pipeline for things that they already have in play, which, you know, is several $100,000 worth of real estate and work that they've already done, if that would be included in that as well. So stay tuned on whether language changes with it. But that also did pass favorably this morning with a committee substitute. Yes. But I actually think that that's all that I have right now for bills. Those were the bills that were heard this week. I don't have anything agended for next week yet. Probably a flood of things will come out tomorrow afternoon or something. But yeah, unless I forgot something, Jody, I think that's what I've got for what happened with bills.
That sounds like what happened with bills this week.
Mhm.
Thanks a lot, Maria. Thanks everybody who joined us. This is Florida Cannabis Action Network, and that is some of the bills that we are looking at. Maria, would you go ahead and put that back up, please, and we'll run through it real quickly. If you'll drive, I'll be your navigator, and we'll start at the top. Just
Just
so
wanted to see all
people
these new
who,
faces that showed up.
I
Come in
don't
here,
blame
peek
you
real
a
quick.
bit.
I
Hi,
do
We're
have
very
some
Hi,
grateful.
questions.
Juan. Hi, Drea.
Hey, I got some questions for
Okay,
you,
So,
maybe we got
Maria.
answers.
let's remember that Dana, we're gonna talk strategy when we're not so
Towards the end of the meeting.
if your questions are about the bill or what happened
Yeah,
with the bills,
yeah,
then this would be a great time for that.
yep, that's exactly what it is. So
Super.
I'm really curious about this naturopathic 90-page bill that was 77 pages not that long ago. Is it so? What my perspective is on it, from what I think it is it them trying to make it where pharmacies would be dispensing versus dispensaries dispensing, or where healthcare insurance would cover cost of cannabis? Like, what exactly does this do, naturopathic medicine? And I know that are we also talking about ketamine centers and stuff like that? Like,
So I don't think that's gonna, it will be interesting to see what this affects. So Maria watched the hearing today, but my feeling on, and she can validate this, my feeling on it, Dana, is that what they are trying to do is begin to regulate an industry that is very, very broad right now. And has very, very little oversight. And I suspect that there are a lot of people that don't want naturopathic medicine to be covered under insurance. Because once it's covered under insurance, then insurance providers tell you how to practice medicine. That's kind of how that works. So,
yeah,
right now there is, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into. So that's a great segue into my, what I wanted to bring this back up for. Maria, can you go back over all the way to the left? So, as the, all the way to the left column, as things are bubbling, Florida Cannabis Action Network has to decide what we're going to work on. So we give bills a number 1 through 5. And for the most part, there's kind of 5 things that we really are looking at. And that kind of our first pass does it improve the lives of patients? Does it make it easier to do good research? Is this going to um, save taxpayers money? Is this, there's economic engine, and there's one that I can't think of, but we kind of do it as a scorecard. And then we have to look at whether or not a bill is actually viable. So there were a lot of bills that were introduced this year. And so people might have heard something about them throughout, maybe in the news. So cannabis offenses, that is not one that we're focusing right now, because it doesn't have another companion. And since it doesn't have a companion in the Senate and the House, and because it is set up by a Democrat and doesn't have a lot of companions, we would give that a 5 in our priorities. Now, at any time, a bill can change what its priority is going to be. This firearms in a sensitive location, that's kind of important to us because it deals with marijuana treatment centers, but it also deals with whether or not someone can bring in a gun into a marijuana treatment center, or whether you can have a gun in a consumption lounge. So that might be a bill for after we, have legal cannabis and there's lots of people consuming. Um, but it's probably not going to get a hearing, so we're keeping it as a 5. As important as public protection is for employees, this is for public employees who use qualified medical marijuana. And we have to do something about employment protection. But as long as we have that 1970s Drug-Free Workplace Act, the government is not going to move on this. They're not going to say it is okay to smoke pot as a city worker because you're a qualified medical patient, because they have to, by federal law, um, have a drug-free workplace if they take more than $100,000 in federal funds. And of course, $100,000 in federal funds is kind of like a nickel compared to 1975. So that's not a priority. Scroll on down if you would, Miss Maria. Now we're going to keep you, anything that's moving, we're going to keep you abreast of. This income tax bill is super, super important. And Rodriguez and Bell are Republicans, and so that makes it even more exciting. One thing that I will put out is there was an article today that said that Uber and 3 other unexpected companies were throwing lobbying power behind the Federal Banking Act. So you can look for that, or you can follow Florida Can on Facebook, where Maria and Dana Kay do a fabulous job of making sure that our information gets out. Next one down, please. The Medical Marijuana Edibles Act, Senator Harrell's office reached out to us this week and asked us to do a show and tell with the problem with packaging for all of the senators on healthcare appropriation. So we're kind of doing a whip count for Harrell's office while she works to get it agended. So this is when the politics really start to get hairy. The first place of reference is Senator Burton's committee. So how much do we want to call Senator Burton an idiot? My oldest son is leaving. How much do we want to call Senator Burton an idiot before we go to her committee and say please and thank you? So
Well, Jody, you've taught me that we're the experts in this. They don't know the cannabis the way we know the cannabis. So, it's not that Burton's an idiot. I would never say, I've heard her speak. She's not. Um, but she certainly could have better language and we could help her with that. Absolutely.
Well, we definitely want to do that. If you'd like to scroll down a little bit. What do we got? Medical marijuana treatment center licenses. We're not seeing any kind of action on that. And that is actually just for, maybe even affects just one family. Believe we would support it. If it came down to it, I'm just surprised that the court hasn't already dealt with that. Scroll on down. Protection of parental rights. We scrolled right past protection of parental rights. This was written by Suncoast Normal. It's in the hands of Senator Polsky, pardon me, and Representative Driscoll. I put a 1 next to this bill, and I'd like us to start, as Florida Cannabis Action Network, to develop a strategy for this. Suncoast Normal has got it teed up, and it affects everyone in the cannabis community. So we need to make sure, well, not everybody in the cannabis community will have a child, but everybody in the cannabis community will know someone who has a child. So we want to make sure that we're being treated like everybody else. And if you're using this medicinally, or if you're using this responsibly, otherwise responsibly, as an over-the-counter product, that shouldn't be held against you. And that one might be one we can work on. Yay, medical marijuana use registry identification cards for veterans. I spoke to Senator Torres's office this week, and they are expected to know whether or not they can get that agended. I'm going to point out that that is also in health policy. So I could really use some time with some more veterans. We've been around once, but it wouldn't hurt if we could get some veterans to go around again. One of the things that I pointed out to Jimmy Johnson this week was that VFWs have their own lobbyists. And so if this is an issue that's important to you, one way to do that is take that one pager that we'll make available on our website and download a couple copies of that. You can take a PDF and send it to Staples. It was like on really, really nice paper, $1.32 a piece. So spend $15 and get 10 copies and take it, pardon me, ask if you can put it up on a bulletin board at the VFW. See if someone from the board is willing to talk to you about why this would be important to veterans. And you really don't have to do anything other than read the language that we've already provided. And we can give, oh no, what's Brendan's last name?
Limprich.
Brendan Limprich, um, who does community outreach for the Flowery, credit for the language. And he's really laid out what medical marijuana can do for veterans and why they need this. I'm pretty excited about what Brendan did, and we're going to be talking some more about that when we get into our strategy portion of this evening. Maria, you want to scroll down another minute or two?
I do. I just wanted to point out that Valdez has a co-sponsor on the House side with Arrington on this bill as well.
That was great to see Representative Arrington pick that up as a co-sponsor, and that's part of the work that we'll be doing next week, is working on
Garnering support.
co-sponsors. So very concerned about the hemp products bill. We kind of beat on that. The parole bill by Powell, if it got any energy, we would move that up. So Maria, if you would go ahead and move potency of adult personal use of marijuana to 1. That is a cap that was introduced in the Florida House of Representatives by Dr. Ralph Masulo. It's such a shame. There was a real advocate in Ralph Masulo's district who passed about 6 years ago. And he really kept Dr. Masulo on the straight and narrow on this. And we haven't found a champion in that area since that really understood the breadth of this medicine and what leaving a 10% potency will do. The reason we're moving this up is because this bill, although it does not have a Senate companion, it has been only assigned to 2 committees. And the first committee has not been favorable to us on some stuff. The first one is Healthcare Regulation Subcommittee. And I would point out that the chair of Healthcare Regulation Subcommittee is Michelle Sulzman, and that Cruda Cannabis is interested in taking some political power. And this is going to be a really great place for Cruda Cannabis to throw some political power around. If that gets agended with a 10%, and it passes, which if it is a leadership bill and it gets agended, it would pass. The second committee of reference is run by Chairman Fine, and Chairman Fine is a co-sponsor. So that means he's looked at it, he likes it. Pardon me. And of course, Governor DeSantis came out this week and said that they are going to be, that he firmly expects the initiative will be on the ballot. And so that was the first salva in what is going to be the battle for whether or not we have a mature adult market or if we have near beer in baby cups. So, the legislation that we're getting right now is near beer in baby cups, and it is being driven by drug-free America and people who have been prohibitionists for 100 years. It is the stuff that has people's property seized. It is the stuff that kills small businesses. It is the stuff that keeps our private prisons in force, and it is the stuff that keeps the drug testing industry in business. So if there is a 10% potency for adult use marijuana, and then we're going to have to test every piece of marijuana that is seized, and every piece of marijuana will have to be seized because a law enforcement officer won't be able to tell whether your marijuana is legal marijuana or not unless he confiscates it. So we're going to move up our language on some of that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit.
Yeah, there's 2 left. There was the medical marijuana vape shops and then the constitutional amendment revision.
So vape shops, Maria, what did you get from the vape shops? Is anybody other than Ron Watson concerned about what that is going to do?
Yeah, there was an interesting question posed by one of the representatives. I can see her face. I can't think of her name right now. What about new schools? And Salzman pointed out that there's a bunch of regulations, and Amnesty pointed out that there's a bunch of regulations already in place for how schools have to be set up, where playgrounds can be, stuff like that. So it's like basically they feel like they're already regulated to where they would be and it wouldn't be a problem. And they need to change the regulation on this other one. I expected, unless they're doing it privately, I expected more of a fight from the MMTCs. I mean, I know this is first committee, but it's been known throughout the industry for a while now that it's a real estate game out there. Especially during COVID, there were companies just quietly acquiring all kinds of real estate. So you think that this would be a big matter to them? Certainly.
Well,
And
and
if it does affect what they have in the pipeline, it greatly affects them.
and that is an accurate statement, particularly the 70-something applicants who have had to name locations and have had to put leases on locations. So I stood down on that bill this morning because we really don't have a lot of our people who are telling us to do that. We have online, we have doctors' offices. But somebody's going to need to stand up on that one. I think that becomes, again, we put that under one of our prohibitionist bills, and probably should move that to a 3, Maria, because I think that really does have some value.
Well, I guess
And
it
we
depends
wish
on
we had.
how hard people feel real estate is to come by at this point.
Well, a church moved in across the street from Florida Cannabis Action Network's office. If we have hemp products on the shelf, now we have to be a food establishment, and if we're a hemp food establishment, does that mean that we have to pay attention to the fact that a church moved in across the street from us? So, we had no control of that, but it may be less than 1,500 feet. So it would prevent us from doing a service to our members, i.e., providing products that they can depend upon. Would you scroll down a little bit? Is that the end?
That actually just made me think of a question though. If you say you own a vape shop and you sell it to another guy who owns a vape shop, like, can you do that as long as it was already established? Can it remain a vape shop? Or does that change when the lease changes hands? That would be interesting to know, because certainly didn't see that in the bill.
Well, and that really would define the value of your business too. If I couldn't, because a church had moved in across the street in a vacant shopping mall, which is what happened to us. So, as we wrap up this section, and I do want to go ahead and wrap up this section and go ahead and move into some of our strategic planning and discussion time. I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask any questions that might have come up on any of the bills that you've heard. I might ask you to hold I might not answer that question. We might move that into the discussion portion. Anybody who's watching this as a recording but really wish they were part of the discussion needs to jump on and pay your $5 or your $50 annually, $5 a month or $50 a year. Business members pay a little bit more. We do some consulting and we help you with some of these things in the background, help you know when to come up and speak on behalf of your business. But Drea, thanks for popping in tonight. I'm starting at the bottom of my screen. Do you have any questions at this portion?
No, I do not.
Okay,
Thank you.
my pleasure. Well, don't go anywhere, Drea, because we need smart people to help us message against these bad bills.
Okay.
Juan, any questions on what we've been shown right now?
No, no. I'm on high alert over them outlawing basically specific cannabinoids. And that is, I mean, that's the future. That is, so
Concur.
I can't really switch from that channel, but there's some other stuff in here that
Yeah, no, there's lots of bad bills, and we need lots of people fighting on many, many fronts on this. I will put out there that with the governor putting out that he believed that legalization would be on the ballot, that there is kind of a buzz around Tallahassee that we're going to see a decision from the Florida Supreme Court allowing the smart and safe to go to the ballot. So a lot of rumbling going on.
Oh,
Kathy,
if we're gonna mention rumbling, I did have a rumbling I was gonna share with the class. Randy Rembert that testified yesterday.
yeah,
He owns
yeah,
a
hemp
farm about
farmer.
20 minutes from me here.
Uh-huh.
He says, no, it's all, just hearsay, just like DeSantis saying it's going on the ballot, until ink to paper. But He says, I was at the Capitol yesterday speaking on behalf of Florida hemp farmers. Once again, I was told the rumor that if the MMTCs of Florida can't keep up with demand from legalization, the state plans to offer hemp farmers first priority to grow weed.
Well,
Well,
I
that
think that is a fabulous rumor.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah.
Not sure. I believe my first one more than I believe that one.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make perfect sense to me, and it should make it. It should be. They should have the first bite at licensing. But again, if the only thing you can grow is cannabis up to 10%, who's going to buy it? And if nobody's going to buy the cannabis that you grow that's up to 10%, then you're going to have to do something else with that biomass. And now we're back to Delta 8 and Delta O and synthetics and derivatives. But we'll get into some of that. Kathy, is there anything that you'd like, any questions that you have, anything you'd like to add about any of these particular bills?
She said no questions, but she's she's been watching the the Florida channel. Just
Well, I appreciate.
since she can't be there, she's listening via the internet.
Well, we're going to talk strategy, and there's something that every person on this call can do. Carla, thanks for joining us this evening. Any questions about what we've covered so far?
None at all.
Okay, we will talk in strategy more about that hemp bill. We know that that one has finished its first committee, and it has been given 2 committees of reference. Its next committee is fiscal policy. And some people will wonder, my feeling is that it will sit in the Senate for a couple weeks while it starts to roll in the Florida House of Representatives. And I believe that there is an agriculture subcommittee that is its first committee of reference. I don't have that bill in front of me, that page in front of me. I
Which
drove
bill?
home. Gregory's. Carrie, any questions on anything that we've looked at so far?
Agricultural conservation and resiliency.
No questions.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
There is a lot as we move into parental rights and parental protection. I know that you're going to be an incredible asset on that. And
I'm
working
very
on,
interested in that.
and right now, one of the things that we're working on is finding kind of somebody in a few different regions. I think the discussion has been 8 or 12 regions that might be manageable for us. I'm really going to be counting on you to help keep us in line with that.
Mhm.
Dana, Dana Niffen, our friend Dana, our artist and our speaker and our organizer extraordinaire. Any
What you need?
questions?
Oh
Do you
no,
have any
darling.
questions? You're
No,
good. Ready for
I'm all
strategy.
good. I'm ready for strategy. I just need to do more research on this naturopathic stuff. It's got me curious.
Well, they're building a new industry. And so if you think about how the Florida Medical Association and some of those were created, there are still people who have mixed reviews on whether or not insurance
That's
covered by or medicine covered by insurance is even a good idea.
I know, and
Um,
that's I was
Well,
wondering more, and Maria maybe call me later and talk to me about because you were saying there were a lot of people there for and against. Maybe I can get a recap over watching the hours of whatever happened.
yeah, there should be there should also be a lobbyist disclosure listing for that one.
that's
Okay.
interesting too.
Yes, and
Thanks.
Smith, the Representative Smith who presented the bill, didn't present his fee portion of this program. This is going to be a board that's going to be appointed by the governor, a 7-member board and a separate 5-member board. So its next stop is through, it got TP'd today because of the fee portion of the bill. So the next stop is appropriations.
So that's gonna be a fun one to watch, Dana. I look forward to you guys taking that offline. But you know, it will have interesting impact ultimately on the people who want to practice in this space. Um, Julie, Florida girl, cannabis. Questions on what we've done up to this point?
No, I'm good so far. Everything, the way you guys are explaining everything is wonderful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Super. Well, we'll do our best to make this presentation available over the next 24, 48 hours, available through Facebook so that you can let people know. Right now, we don't have any bills on the agenda for next week, but we are expecting to see the hemp bill get agended pretty quickly in the Florida House of Representatives. We're expecting to see probably next week Masulo's bill get agended. We're hopeful that next week our packaging bill will be agended in the Senate, and that next week our veterans bill will also be agended in the Senate. So stay tuned for a really busy next couple weeks. Just to put things in perspective, the Florida legislative session is mandated by constitutional law to be 60 days. It started the first Tuesday after the first Monday in January this year, and it is going to run until right about March 9th. And we're going to be here every Wednesday for our members. Thank you all very much for being here. And I'm going to stop recording.